communicate better?
Well, the way to move forward is interoperability.
So we have to do a lot of work as a person, as a community, and as an institution to really have resilience as one of the values of the Filipinos. Yung tunay na resilience na towards improvement.
Building resilience requires sustainability science inspired by transdisciplinary approach.
To be sustainable, you have to be resilient. To be resilient, you have to be sustainable.
Go natural. Go with nature's flow. Non-structural or natural interventions, as well as good planning, is the most sustainable.
Finally, we need to harness and strengthen the Filipino spirit of bayanihan.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Sa lahat po ng ating mga panauhin para sa ating kanina nakita natin sa ating video, ito yung tinatawag nating Future Earth Philippines Social Development Goals Action Hour or SDG Action Hour. So ang tema po natin ay kamustahan para sa kinabukasan ng ating kalikasan. So bago po tayo magsimula, ipapakilala ko po muna sa inyo ang ating host, ang ating punong abala para sa hapon na ito. Siya po ay presidente ng Universities and Research Councils Network on Innovation for Inclusive Development at kasalukuyan pong isa pong profesor ng Development Studies Program ng Ateneo de Manila University. Atin pong palakpakan si Doy Romero.
Tagapagpadaloy ng ating talakayan sa hapong ito. Kasama ko po si Kadada bilang katuwang na tagapagpadaloy. Narito na naman tayo sa unang yugto ng ating kumustahan para sa magandang kinabukasan. Ang kumustahan ay isang lingguhang pagtitipon ng mga kababayan natin na babad sa paglutas ng mga problema ng ating pamayanan tungkol sa kahirapan, kagutuman, kakulangan ng trabaho, kakulangan ng edukasyon, kakulangan sa kalusugan, kakulangan sa pagkain, kakulangan ng pag-aalaga sa ating kalikasan at kapaligiran, sa ating kalupaan at karagatan, at sa ating pakikipagtulungan. Mga tao na ganyan kalawak ang pag-aaruga sa bayan. Mayroon po, hindi man bilang mga individual, kundi bilang grupo, ang mga ito ay kasapi po ng isang organisasyong Future Earth Philippines na siyang isa sa mga pangunahing tagapagtaguyod ng 17 Sustainable Development Goals ng United Nations sa Pilipinas. Pag po kayong bibitaw para sa makasali kayo sa pagtalakay sa mga temang ito. Tatawagan po natin ngayon si Dr. Luli Cruz na magbibigay ng isang pagpapakilala ng Future Earth Philippines.
Ma'am Luli, nakamute po kayo. Ma'am Luli, please turn on your microphone. Yan.
Okay na?
Okay na po, ma'am.
Sige. Ang Future Earth, tinatag namin ito noong nag-umpisa kami mag-usap tungkol dito noong 2017. Ay magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Tapos, ang binuo natin itong konsepto noon na mga taga-NAS ang nagtumawag ng parang brainstorming tungkol dito. So ito ay initiative ng academe and other concerned citizens to help attain sustainability sa Pilipinas. Membro tayo ng Future Earth, yung global network of scientists, researchers, and innovators for a sustainable planet. So there are 6 international organizations that are parang inaalagaan itong Future Earth. And itong SDG Action Hour, ito naman, sa ngayon ay pinagtutulungan ng NAS, UNIDSEA, under DOST, and inaasahan natin na ang NRCP ay makakasama na rin dito sa susunod. At meron tayong mga katuwang na mga universities at iba-ibang institusyon. Kaya kami nag-umpisa ng Future Earth dahil nakita namin ito inilabas ng Global Footprint Network. Itong graph na ito na pinakikita na delikado ang Pilipinas. The Philippines has run an ecological deficit for the past half century. Simula sa 1 global hectares per person ang ating biocapacity, bumaba na ito sa kalahati, 0.5. At ang ecological footprint noon na balance lang siya sa biocapacity, tumaas na ng 1.3. So meron tayong 0.8 na deficit sa ecological deficit natin. So kailangan natin sana mabalanse ito. Sa ano ba ang lagay ngayon ng Pilipinas? According sa UN Sustainable Development Report noong 2021, isa lang ang SDG, yung SDG 13, dito lang tayo on track para ma-achieve natin ang SDG by 2030. At doon sa ibang, merong 17 SDGs, sa karamihan nito, either tayo ay nag-i-improve moderately pero hindi tayo natin maa-attain ito by 2030. At walang nangyayari sa atin tungkol doon sa itong mga SDGs na ito. At ang masaklap ay nagde-deteriorate tayo tungkol sa SDG 4 na quality education at SDG 15 tungkol sa life on land. So, ito ang malaking problema natin at inaasahan natin na ito ang mapag-uusapan linggo-linggo, mga iba-ibang topics na para makatulong sa atin na ma-attain natin ang SDGs. So, yun lang po.
Okay. So, maraming salamat po kay Doc Luli sa kanyang binigay na introduction sa Future Earth. Ganyan po, yung ating mga taga-subaybay ay inaanyayahan namin kayo. Meron po kayong makikita na hyperlink dyan sa ating chat. Kung hindi nyo makita, ipapakita namin ulit. Pag i-click-click po ninyo yan, ay makakapunta kayo sa isang mural whiteboard kung saan pwede ninyong ibigay ang inyong comments, ang inyong questions, o magbigay ng karagdagang impormasyon. O kaya naman, kung gusto niyo ilagay lang ninyo dito sa chat. Pero mas exciting po na ilagay ninyo doon sa mural para yung ating mga resource person ay tunghayan nila yan mamaya at kaya nilang sagutan ng in an integrated manner. Okay, so ito rin po ay isang pagsasanay sa mas participatory process para doon sa ating mga susunod na talakayan ay makita ninyo na kayo ay may oportunidad na sumali. Okay, so umpisahan na po natin ang ating kumustahan. Ang una po nating tanong ay ito. Paano pinagmumulan ng panganib at kalamidad ang hugis, anyo at komposisyon ng kalupaan at katubigan ng ating kapuluan? Aba, medyo maganda po itong tema natin. Ang una po nating tatanungin ay si Rico Ancog. Siya po ay dekano ng School of Environmental Science and Management sa UP Los Baños. Pagkatapos po nito, ay tatanungin naman po natin si Glenn Tabios na isa naman pong profesor sa College of Engineering sa University of the Philippines sa Diliman. Sila po ay may malawak na kaalaman at karanasan dito sa pag-uusapan natin. Kaya umpisahan na po natin. So, Rico, pakisagot po yung ating medyo mataas na antas na tanong.
Importante po na kailangan nating malink, no? Ang taas na antas ng mga hazards. Marami po yun. Drought, bagyo. Ito po ay siyempre dulot ng lokasyon natin doon sa mundo. Kung nasaan tayo. So alam po natin na nasa Pacific ring tayo. And therefore, yung characteristics ng lugar, kung paano nakukumprise ng mga isla, ito po ay naka-apekto sa dami at epekto at magnitude ng mga bagyo at iba pang klase ng mga hazards na meron tayo. Okay po ba ang audio ko, Sir Doy?
Yes, yes. Oo. Yeah. Okay. Ngayon naman, ano naman ang pinagmumulang problema ng reaksyon o behavior ng ating mga kababayan doon sa ating kalupaan at katubigan?
So, ang vulnerability, no, ang tawag natin dyan is vulnerability. Ito ay function ng a number of factors. Unang-una is really yung sa sensitivity. Ano yung karakter ng lupa o ng lokasyon kung nasaan tayo. Tapos pangalawa, yung ability natin to respond. So, yung behavior or yung karakter, yung collective ability natin to understand the hazards and to also come up with what we call as adaptive measures through space and through time really has an impact on how we grasp, how we then come up with, how we plan, and how we come up with specific measures in response to it. Siguro hindi naman po ibig sabihin, alam natin na meron tayong mga iba't ibang klaseng hazards, pero hindi po ibig sabihin doon na walang pwedeng gawin. So, the behavioral aspect and the collective understanding on a number of hazards really has a say on how we interact with a number of these hazards.
Okay. Kaya po ba ninyo magbigay ng halimbawa ng magandang pagtugon sa mga kalamidad o sa mga hazards at isa naman na hindi masyadong maganda?
So, alam niyo po, siguro at the national level, we understand, of course, that there are technologies and policies that we set and combinations of a number of these. Because una, we want to understand the characteristics of the hazards in relation to the location, kung nasaan po tayo. And then, naging basihan po yan sa pagpaplano at saka kung ano ang aksyon gagawin doon sa bansa. Now, so, ang example po dyan is how we understand typhoons, how we understand other types of hazards, and then as basis for how we come up with concrete actions. Now, sa community level naman po, ang nakikita ko na magandang example po dito is a number of parang kondisyon or sitwasyon ng mga kasamahan nating indigenous people. Example po dyan sa pag-aaral namin ay ang mga alangan mangyan sa Mount Halcon, sa Mindoro, or Bako, no? Sa Bako, sa bayan ng Bako, Oriental Mindoro. Palagi silang naapektuhan ng bagyo, pero alam niyo po, ang karakter nila, alam na nila ang parang pag-forecast ng bagyo. Meron silang mga cultural practices na naisagawa na. Kaya kahit may bagyo man, alam na din nila kung paano po mag-adapt. Now, those are at least two scales, at the national and at the community level, that really sets as good examples in terms of paano iniintindi, paano naintindihan, at paano mag-respond doon sa ating iba't ibang klaseng hazard.
Yeah. Actually, noong nakaraang linggo, actually, may dito sa ating kapulungan dito, may natunghayan kami na isla na batasan sa may Bohol na dahil doon sa earthquake ay bumaba yung kanilang isla. Yung buong isla, yung buong village ay lubog na sa tubig pero hindi pa rin umaalis yung mga tao at parang wala naman silang balak na umalis. Ito po ba ay magandang behavior sa tingin ninyo or is it a matter of resilience or is it a lack of awareness?
Mahirap po mag-prescribe ng specific na sagot po dyan sa tanong na yan. Kasi siyempre, nag-iba-iba po ang mga kondisyon. Pero base sa mga iba't ibang klaseng pag-aaral, importante actually na intindihin natin yung sense of place na meron ng isang grupo, ng isang komunidad doon sa lugar kung nasaan sila. Malalim po ang interaction actually, meron ang dalawa, ang lugar kung nasaan sila at ang klase ng collective, no? Tapos yun po ang naging basihan paano sila nagre-respond doon sa mga biophysical phenomenon meron ng isang lugar. Now, kung nakikita po natin na ang isang hazard ay sobrang malubha na, and we think that there's really a clear effect or impact doon sa komunidad, and there are solutions by which we can actually help them, pwedeng yun po yung isang option na titingnan. But on the other hand, that's not always is the case. May mga tao na sa tingin ng outside, ang komunidad na yun ay kailangan talagang palisanin na. But without having a more nuanced understanding that they also have that adaptive capacity. So, sa tingin natin na tagalabas, mukhang kailangan paalisin na, palipatin sa ibang lugar. Pero actually, we have to also respect the capacity of the groups to, better respond. So there's spatial aspect to it, there's temporal aspect to it with this interaction.
Okay. Napakaganda po ng sagot ninyo na kailangan natin ng nuanced understanding, taking consideration the culture of the people and the place, but on the other hand, also recognizing the limits of the adaptive capacity and there might be a need for external assistance. Okay, palagay ko po at this time si Kaglen ay medyo kating-kati na siya na sumama dito sa ating diskusyon. Kaglen, maaari po ba ninyong sagutin yung tanong natin?
Maraming salamat, Kadoy. Ang lahat ng nakikinig na nanonood sa atin today. So, yung sagot ko, I put it in a slide actually. Ibang
sige po.
slide yung kay Rico. Pero sa akin yung, merong slides, I think I've got, merong mga 6 na slides.
Okay.
So, i-mix ko lang yung English at saka Tagalog. Kasi para mas efficient mag-present pag
okay.
kung yung ano yung sa slides ko. So, i-share ko muna itong presentation ko. So, ang ginawa ko in the context of our SDG Action Hour na theme for today. So, yung titulo na aking presentation is on imperatives of integrated water and coastal resources management and flood risk management. So, I'll start with
recording in progress.
Number 2, we are archipelagic country. So in an archipelago, it was formed by maybe volcanic eruption and so on. And meron mga tumubo doon, mountains, and then very near yung coast. So if you look at yung river systems natin, really high slopes. Like if you look at a lot of continental na mga rivers in Europe and US, they're less than 5% slopes. You know, very long. Pero tayo meron tayong 15% slope. That's quite a really steep slope as far as yung prone to erosion and sedimentation, and then again erosion, the cycles of erosion sedimentation. Sa ating mga rivers, and so again, if you think about how our cities how the landform, yung mga delta deposits natin, unfortunately, a lot of us built in this landform na fluvial na mga deltaic formation. It's really a swampland like Metro Manila or maybe Cagayan de Oro City. And those are things that maybe we don't have really a choice, but on the other hand, maybe we should recognize them to be able to really properly defy or otherwise fight those hazards. Anyway, the bottom line is that we really need what we call sustainable and integrated land, water, coastal resources management, as well as hazard management because of the archipelagic humid tropics. So we have all the elements of yung disasters for that matter. So I have an outline here, but I have to be quick because what do we do, why, how, and where? So when you talk about the elements of this integrated water and coastal resource management and hazard management, we have to look at the other components of water resources and coastal resources. So not only just deal with the hazards, but deal with the benefits of having our resources. We're quite endowed with a lot of rainfall, but then we have to have conservation. On the other hand, we have to have control, proper control, yung excess water. Anyway, as far as what are we talking about, we want to conserve and protect our water and land resources because they are very much interactive with each other. Yung land is the medium of water, and then of course air and so on. But anyway, so you have to have efficient allocation and utilization of water resources, effective flood management. We have to also deal with the water quality, maintenance of our land systems. I talk about water, but most importantly, the medium of water and the river training, the river works, even our mga flood, yung mga wetland areas. We have to preserve, conserve them, not only to control yung waters, yung excess, but they have really beneficial use. Even yung floods have beneficial uses if we do it properly. So again, I talk about land and coastal hazard management. Why? Because we want to have water reliability. We want water to be when and where needed. We want to have secured the water for irrigation, hydropower, all those different purposes to sustain our socio-economic yung structures and also our development, and then provide, of course, energy. And another important thing that we should not forget is we really have to have the proper land and water resources to be able to support yung ecosystem functions, the ecological integrity of our land and water systems. And how do we do it? That's what I was talking about earlier, integrating water, coastal, and land resources management. And then, of course, you have from the point of view of management, we have to have the proper science, data collection. We need to create river basin organizations. And of course, we have intergovernmental policy planning and operations panel, multi-stakeholder land, water, coastal resources advisory board. And that's what even Rico was talking about, yung indigenous knowledge of peoples. They have to be involved because they know better than a lot of us in the consulting firms or even the academia. No? They are the people who really know the details of all this. And of course, capacity, I mentioned, but where? So then that's what we're talking. We have to think in terms of mountains and upland, watersheds, rivers, groundwater, urban sanitation and sewerage system, wetlands, mangroves, and etc. So in the context of IWRCM, actually IWCRM, when we talk about flood risk management, we think in terms of integrated flood management. You have land use, the water resources, the coastal, but we have to look at it from when you look at the science of things, we have to think in terms of ridge to reef, which was mentioned earlier. Nowadays, we call it source to sea continuum, or even cloud to coast. As far as a humitropic archipelagic country, you have to think of the atmospheric process, although we just collapsed that into the word
Recording in
before the earthquake,
progress.
or in this so many hundreds of years, perhaps, the rivers were going from west to east valley into the sea. But because there's an uplift on this side, they started going sort of east and then north, going northeast. So
naiba yung direction nila.
Ganun lang yan, nagkaiba. But people didn't realize that. Anyway, in 1994, the first immediate disaster nangyari is there was a tsunami. So it produced in a matter of 2 to 3 minutes, you know, so many people were killed because of this big tsunami waves, you know. And it also caused flooding. But then, of course, that's the immediate effect. But slowly, what happened is that over a period of 10 years, sometime 2005, slowly, itong river na to, which is the mag-asawang tubig, which is the asawa, si Ibolo River, at saka si Aglupang River. Yung Aglupang is the woman, Ibolo is the male. They got married, and then it went, this is the mag-asawang tubig. But slowly, this was captured by Bukayo River, which is on the northern part of the mag-asawang tubig. And in 2005, there was a 3 series of typhoons, parang 777, December 7, 14, 21, and finally parang 28 yung nagkaroon ng flooding dito sa Calapan because the water went all the way up north. Actually, a little bit northeast, parang ganon, no? So that has caused a lot of flooding that isolated, nauhan yung mga towns on the lower side valley. So this is what we call, well, in the beginning, they were claiming, because of forest denudation, kasi may mga laging sa Mount Halcon, but it was really that earthquake, which is a very slow creeping process, but yet it has really changed your river landscape. So there's a very good example of course, a natural disaster that really recreated yung river landscape and into a different system. Anyway, so that's a good example when you talk about cascading risk and disaster in time and space. But anyway, as far as flood mitigation, we always wanted to say that, so this sort of an imperative of flood. First, we wanted to restore. So, like for saying, Kagan River Basin, for example, I've seen that because of sedimentation, you could have managed the river, maybe manage the sedimentation rates para hindi mag-shallow, but you cannot avoid sedimentation because the archipelagic setting, you have the Cordilleras or the Caraballo, Sierra Madre, which is flowing, the rivers flow into the Cagayan River with a lot of sediments because of steep slopes. So, but if you are able to do it, first you restore. If not enough, then you enhance. And finally, you do engineering measures. So that's how, supposedly, how we should think in terms of flood mitigation rather than go right away to engineering measures. And my last slide is basically just an example where nowadays we have what you call this NBS, or nature-based solutions of on flood control and coastal resilience. But if you look at the built engineered flood protection, where you use hard gray structures, nowadays we can really think of natural. But on the other hand, maybe not enough. So maybe part of it will be engineered, but a big part will be nature-based. So we call it hybrid. Although that's the subject of our second episode of the SDGR next week. But I just want to show you the examples that, especially in an urban area, when you talk about flood control, you can have like rain harvesting, so to speak, that not only for purposes of domestic water supply, where it's drinking water, if it's clean, if it's not acid rain, but really to reduce storm runoff. You can also use the infiltration gallery to increase your groundwater recharge. And it could be a source of brown water for irrigation and so on. So that's my last slide. So hello again.
Hi. Napakaganda po ng mga senior nyo. Parang parang patikim na smorgasbord, hindi ho ba? Hindi man natin may explain ng mahabaan ngayon, pero ito ay dapat sundan ng ating mga participants dito kasi hihimayin po natin yan sa darating na panahon. Pero parang ipinapakita lang po natin dito na hindi simple yung pinag-usapan na disaster management and making it appropriate to place and time and culture, hindi ho ba? And so maganda po yung binigay sa atin ni Kaglen. Ngayon po, ang gagawin natin ay tawagan natin si Kadada. We will ask her to show the mural. Basahin natin lahat yung mga katanungan at yung mga comments. At kung meron pang gustong magtanong in person, we will do this for a few minutes. And then we will ask Rico to come in to present some of his slides that might respond to some of these questions. Tama po ba yun? So bigyan natin ng mga 7 minuto siguro yung ating mga participants na may share nila, yung kanilang mga tanong, yung information nila. And then we will ask Rico to present some slides to provide a response to these questions. Kadada?
Ayan, maraming salamat, Kadoy. Natutuwa lang ako, Kadoy, share ko lang na meron tayong more than 177 participants sa ngayon from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Hindi ko na po kayang isa-isahin, but we have from national high school, DepEd, universities, state colleges, may NGO, and also our LGUs. Ang dami po nating guests. So, ayan, maraming salamat. So, basahin ko lang po. Ito po yung mga nakita nating comments. One problem with our disaster management and action is the gap of communication between the government and scientific community and the citizens. Example here, sa Batangas, nung pumutok ang Taal Volcano, marami ang hindi naintindihan kung ano ang base, ang search, etc. Thus, di alam kung ano ang dapat gawin na plano or plan of action. Yan. Yan po ay shinare ng mga taga Batangas. And then, isa pa po, kailangan pong malaman ng mga tao na ang mga nasa pamunuan kung ano ang mga hazards at ang risks na sa lugar. Dito po papasok ang climate and disaster risk assessment na base sa katangian ng lugar at ng mga nakapaloob dito. Okay, so
sabihin lang natin sa kanila na kung gusto nila magpahabol ng comment at tanong, mag-double click lang dyan sa mural. Ano?
Opo. Then, in fact, sir, meron pang mga nag-aano kaya hinahawak
Recording in
actually,
progress.
very interesting, no? Dito sa tatlong boxes, itong tatlong question, communication, and then yung SIDRA, at saka also about the reach-to-reach approach. So very quickly, if you'll allow me also to share two slides lang.
Yes.
Go,
yes.
sir. Sige po.
Kumanaw ako na mag-slide.
Paghaluin na natin yan, yung response mo at saka yung questions.
Yeah.
Sige.
So, 2 slides lang ito kasi very important. So, kanina, si Sir Glenn, sabi niya, nature-based solutions. Now, kung ang isang, ang sinasabi natin dito is, if we understand that the archipelagic nature, para bang ito ang dahilan bakit meron tayong a number of hazards. Pero, sinasabi din ni Sir Glenn kanina, it also has natural actions also to protect us from a number of those hazards. And importante yon na may reach-to-reach approach ka doon. So therefore, the nature-based solutions must be designed in each of those ecosystems across the reach-to-reach. In-emphasize yan ni Sir Glenn kanina. To identify those, what is appropriate given the condition on the ground, and then paano sa pag-design kasi there are single hazards or multiple hazards. Now, so importante din doon yung sa SIDRA, which is one of the mechanisms by which we then incorporate risks and hazards doon sa ating pagpaplano. So, huwag niyo po munang tingnan itong blue economy. Tingnan po natin itong figure sa kabila. Meron tayong mga pagpaplano mula doon sa local, sa munisipyo, sa province, sa regional, up to the national. This is the way we do planning actually. Pero kung may SIDRA ka, importante siyang input doon sa local development planning para i-translate din natin yun doon sa investment planning. But I believe yung mention kanina about communication is really crucial in there because we want to make sure that the designing of all of those will be communicated and naka-embed doon ang discussion about appreciation ng risks at paano natin ito at paano dapat ito maintindihan ng bawat isa sa atin. Now, ang isa, so may reach-to-reach na, risk communication, and then yung nature-based solution. So yun yung tatlong importanteng na itanong kanina, and perfectly, it actually fits all together. Sige, pakinggan po, Ma'am Dada.
Thank you, Rico. No? Meron din pong mga tanong na kinuha natin doon sa Q&A na nakita. Pero nandun na rin po siya sa ating mural. Pero meron pong isa ditong komento na nasa chat box natin. Lahat ng nangyayari sa kalikasan ay mag-epekto sa produksyon ng ating mga pagkain. Yan.
Dada.
Okay.
Sorry.
Po,
may tanong
yes,
si
ma'am.
Academician Juliano.
Yes, sir. Okay po. Go po. Paki-unmute lang po, sir, ang inyong mic.
Unmute na ako.
Okay po.
Everybody knows the water level of the ocean is going up because snow is melting at so many meters or inches per year. And have we calculated when Manila will be sinking? Or also, because of our extraction of water, the land is sinking. So which one is faster, the sinking or the rise of the water? And then the other one is, what do we do if Manila sinks? In other countries like Indonesia, they're moving their capital out far away from the sea. Are we also going to have the same problem? You know, when you are going to move Manila to Quezon City, that was the plan before, you know. That takes a long time. So we must start planning. And these are what will happen to the Philippines. We will have how many islands less, and we will have a total area, land area, which is going to be smaller. So the other one is, should we reclaim land? Because when you reclaim land, the level is not very high. And the first one that will be flooded will be the reclaimed land. This is my query. And
Okay
I
po,
am not,
thank
I'm
you.
not, this is not my line. I don't know anything about these things. Thank you very
Marami
much.
pong salamat. Ayan, tingnan natin kung masasagot ito ng ating mga may malawak na Sabi kasi kanina, wag muna natin pag-usapan yung reclamation, di ba, Sir Glenn?
Yes. If I may, academician Juliano, maybe some points I can answer, no? So as far as yung sea level rise, an apparent sea level rise, sa Metro Manila in particular, I know that in the last, I think there was a data shown by DPWH, yung NCR flood control section on, merong rise na mga 30 cm in the last 40 years doon sa port area. Banda doon sa Kamanava or that area. But when they look at the data, yung sea level rise is maybe less than 5 cm or I'm talking about cm, I think. Less than 5 centimeters in the last 50 years. Pero yung mga 25 doon, especially in the Malabon area, it was due to groundwater pumping. Kasi doon merong parang benchmark doon, yung parang monument talaga, na tinayo pa during the time of the Americans, parang bumaba. So it was, when you look at it carefully, yung cadastral survey or whatever you call it, parang bumaba yung land, which was also from studies of Dr. Kelvin Rodolfo and Fernando Ando Saringan Bale. They had this big article na Manila is sinking. So when you look at the apparent sea level rise, it could be 30 cm in the last 50 years or so, but maybe 5 lang yung sea level rise talaga. But of course, it's so difficult to assess, to look at ano bang mangyari 100 years from now or 200 years, but because it's something to do with the land, again, as I was talking. Now, if you look at the deltaic formation, which is the Kamanava area, even the Old Manila, a lot of the sediments came from Tulian River and then Marikina. So maybe it will shallow the river, and hopefully if you move all those sediments, darating doon sa ibaba, na hindi siya bababa. Now, the idea of, again, like in Singapore, in Kuala Lumpur, they moved the government offices from Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya. And in fact, Kuala Lumpur is one area na being flooded because there are 2 rivers doon. Na pababa. The big one is the Klang River. So they built this smart tunnel. They diverted the water from the headwaters using yung smart storm water and a road tunnel, SMART, and road tunnel. So that's a combination of a flood tunnel, pero kung madaming floods, road tunnel, kung madaming tubig, they will close it as a road and then bring it down. So the same thing in Indonesia. They moved from Jakarta to that island next to one. Myanmar, from Rangoon to Naypyidaw. That's a high area, 200 kilometers away. That's why maybe it's a good idea to move it to Quezon City or move it all the way to Clark, which is, I think, one of the ideas na pwedeng. Now, very quickly lang on the reclamation, I would say that it's like this. River systems naturally manage what you call laws of nature, which is if you have a drainage area of this much, and if it's a deltaic area, there must be a lot, there are this what you call drainage densities. So many streams from stream order 1, which is the headwater streams, and then they join, they become a second order, third order, fourth order, etc. Now, yung meron ding what you call yung sizes ng drainage, ganito kalaki sa itaas, tapos palaki ng palaki. Now, if you reclaim at the downstream end, how do you create a drainage system such that from a natural drainage system, ma-retain pa rin yung ability to move waters from the mountains to the oceans or to the seas? When you do reclamation, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really recreate yung natural na mga drainage systems also. They will have small drainage. If you think about, even if the reclamation around that resorts world, I've done some work on the flood control. They reclaim. Before, maybe you have a drainage of so much density. Now, ginawa nila ng mga drainage na mga maliit lang. Because if they have instead of a drainage na 50 meters wide, imagine yung 50 meters by about 300 or 500 meters, that's millions of pesos na nawala. Para ba? So instead of building a 50 meter wide, maybe ginawa 30. Yung 20 times 500 millions ang na-loss nila because of that reclamation. So that's a problem if you do. In other words, my answer is as simple as if you wanted to create an island or create a delta or a reclamation, try to still retain the natural na mga flood processes, I mean the ability to convey water, etc. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
si Josephine Fuentes siya, may tanong.
Opo, nagtataas ng kamay. Yes po.
I think Rico has wanting to say something.
Kasi malalim yung sagot ni Academician Glenn, no? Pero ang isang dagdag ko na lang po, if you may, Academician Glenn, is in the immediate, we're doing the evaluation. I mean, the government is evaluating a number of big ticket projects. Crucial po doon is yung pag-appreciate nung yung sa design factor, no? Yung turnover po ng mga itong mga events. At paano kaya natin siya na-incorporate doon sa pag-assess natin doon sa mga big ticket projects? If you think about bridges or infrastructure, paano kaya mainstream or integrate doon ang return periods ng mga baha o kung ano man? And I think those are crucial na kailangang ma-identify, ma-quantify, at maisama talaga doon sa evaluation natin ng ginagawa natin, because that's how we regulate development projects to make sure that, you know, hindi siya mako-compromise yung developmental aspect noon dahil na-miss out natin yung resilience component ng pag-evaluate ng mga projects. Yun lang po yung gustong idagdag doon sa malalim na sagot ni Sir Glenn.
Yan, maraming salamat ka Glenn and ka Rico. Naku, umuusok ang ating floor. Ngayon, ang dami-dami nating mga discussion na talagang nagiinit ang ating mga kalamnan. Pero time check, it's already 6:23. Alalahanin po natin, meron na lang tayong 7 minutes to go. No, pero meron po yatang katanungan si Ma'am Josephine Fuentes. Ma'am Josephine, go ahead po. Paki-unmute nyo na lang po ang mic nyo.
Napindot
Napindot lang. Okay, sige. Oo. Naku, naka-exciting po talaga itong ating SDG Hour kasi talagang Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao na andito sa atin, no? So,
si Connie, Ginid.
Nagtaas. Asan po siya?
Si Connie.
Yes po, Ma'am Connie. Ma'am Connie, kung may question po kayo, paki-unmute na lang po ang mic. Baka napindot lang din. Wala na, sir. Meron pa po bang questions o mga information na nais niyong i-share sa grupo?
Dada, meron natin sa Q&A.
Okay po, tingnan natin. Sa Q&A. Ayan, ako. Isa sa pinagbabawal ay ang pagsisiga, lalong-lalo na sa linang. May mga magsasaka pa rin po na hindi sumusunod sa mga alituntunin na bawal ang pagsisiga. Tanong ko po, anong ahensya po ang may saklaw po dito upang matigil ang mga pagsisiga na siyang nakakadagdag ng init sa kapaligiran since parang di po siya napapansin ng mga LGU? May mga private individual po dito na ang lupain ay malapit sa ilog na siyang ginagawang quarry site. May karapatan po ba ang nagmamay-ari ng lupa na malapit sa ilog na kanya po iyong ipa-quarry? Yan po. Meron pa. Para po isang sagutan na lang. Will there be discussions on solid waste management in the future sessions? Ayan. So, unang tanong po tungkol sa pagsisiga. Anong ahensya dapat ang nakakatukoy dito sa problema na to? At yung pangalawa, yung quarrying. At yung pangatlo ay meron po bang magiging topic na solid waste management in the future?
Ano, Sir Glenn?
Hindi ko alam yung
sige.
pagsisiga actually. Ano yung pagsisiga?
Ay, yung
Ang tanong doon,
bonfire.
Bonfire.
oo. Ang tanong po talaga is anong
Dr. Rico can answer yan.
Ang tanong po talaga is anong ahensya po, no? And ang assumption doon, parang sa bandang question is LGU. Kasi ang sagot ko po sana doon, LGU. Pero what if kung ang LGU, meaning municipality at saka barangay, ang medyo may limitasyon doon sa pagkontrol. Siyempre, ang Department of Environment and Natural Resources po talaga ang may major na mandato para dito. Technical po ang pagtingin nito, may regulatory aspect po siya. Pero importante po yung papel sana ng LGU para ma-translate yung technical aspect to enforcing, particularly at the LGU level. Now, sila po talaga ang may direktang mandato po dito. Now, ang pagsisiga dapat talaga may pronouncement at the LGU level, and I think yun yung kailangang i-check natin doon sa ating local development plans at saka yung sa mga local ordinances. Now,
okay.
Sige.
If I may say, yung Laguna Lake Development Authority, palagay ko, dahil yan nung martial law ay binigyan talaga ng poder na pati yung pagsisiga ay ititigil. But we need to check that. Okay, actually, maganda po itong patikim natin na 1 oras at medyo gahol na tayo sa oras. So gusto ko lang sabihin sa ating mga participants na bibigyan po namin kayo ng oportunidad sa susunod na mag-participate actively. Gamitin lang po natin itong mural para nababasa natin lahat kahit na wala na tayo dito, ay nababasa natin yan. Kayo po ay merong access dyan sa mural na yan at makukuha ninyo yung mga notes dyan. So, kailangan na po natin tapusin yung ating kumustahan at gusto natin bigyan ng oportunidad si Cesar Gomez na miyembro ng Future Earth Philippines at ng NAST nagbibigay ng kanyang synthesis dito sa ating naganap na talakayan.
Maraming salamat ka, Doy. Inutusan ako magbigay ng buod sa sharing ng dalawang dalubhasa. Una muna kay Doc Rico, maraming hazards at dapat kilalanin natin ang hazard ayon sa lugar, okay, sa location of the world. Tapos, kasabay ng hazard na yan, ang behavior ng citizens. At ang matinding binanggit niya, we can do something. We can do something. Pangatlo, yung answers to hazards, merong national technologies and policies, tapos meron din sa community level. Binanggit niya yung halimbawa ng IP sa Mindoro, sa Baco, na meron silang awareness and cultural practices. Okay? At huling binigyan ng halimbawa ay sa isla, sa Bohol, na yung mga tao walang balak umalis. So yan titimbang natin. Okay. May hinabol si Rico na 3 bagay na bigyan natin din yung nature-based solutions, tapos incorporate risks and hazards into planning, and then communicate the risks. Si Doc Tabios naman, binigyan niya din yung integrated land, water, and coastal. Hindi lang yung tunnel vision na isa-isa, kundi magkakadikit siyan. At binigyan din niya na tayo ay nasa near the equator na merong mga typhoons and monsoons and large floods because we're in the ITCT, Intertropical Convergence Zones. At binigyan din ulit yung archipelagic nature ng ating country na with high slopes compared to the continents with slow slopes, no? So nagdadagdag sa erosion and sedimentation. Kadikit ng integrated water coastal rivers, kailangan din ng integrated water coastal resources management. Okay? So yung integrated na pananaw, kailangan ng integrated management dyan. At isang magandang halimbawa binigay ni Doc Glenn ay yung sa Mindoro na kumbaga sinasabi, sinisisi ang pagkakalbo ng bundok sa flooding, pero sabi niya ang pagbabago ng daloy ng ilog ang isang mahalaking dahilan. Okay? At bilang pagtatapos, sabi ni Glenn, tatlo. Una muna, restore as much as possible. So nature-based solutions. Enhance at panghuli na lang yung engineering measures. Okay? Siguro gusto kong dagdag na sa mga nakikinig sa participants, baka bigyan natin ng pagkakataon through emails, that kung may mga tanong pa sila, questions and suggestions. And ako rin may tanong, can Future Earth provide a framework whereby the participants and community can participate? Yun na lang. I hope I gave you justice to the discussion. Maraming salamat, Kadoy.
Okay, maraming salamat po sa napakagandang at maiksing buod na ibinigay ninyo. Ngayon po ay papakita namin yung slide ng susunod. Alam namin na ang dami ninyong suggestions kung ano dapat ang maging paksa sa mga susunod. Pauudlakan po namin kayo kung hindi man mangyari yan sa susunod na sa Biyernes, pero ililista po namin yan. At ito pong ginagawa namin hindi man nasabi ni Dr. Cruz dahil ang SDG ay hanggang 2030. Ito pong programa namin ito ay linggo-linggo hanggang 2030. Yan po yung aming ambisyon. So, sa Biyernes po, makinig kayong uli. So, ngayon po, ito na yung susunod. Babasahin po ni Dada para sa atin yung susunod nating programa.
Okay, maraming salamat Sir Doy. Rest assured po na yung mga questions nyo ay masisave naman po dun sa chat box kasi nandun inilipat po namin. Okay, so sa susunod po episode natin sa September 9, this is going to be next Friday. Ganun din, same time. Ito po ay Coastal Green Belts. What are they and why do we need them? Ano ito at bakit natin ito kailangan? At ang atin pong mga magtatalakay na may sasagot sa ating mga katalungan ay ang ating pong kapatid at kapatid na Georgian H. Primavera from the National Academy of Science and Technology, and also si kapatid na Benito M. Pacheco, also from the NAST. So, exciting po ito. Another exciting na naman na discussion na magkakaroon tayo sa susunod na Friday. And we are hoping po, kung nakita nyo na po itong titulo ng ating discussion, maaari na po rin siguro kayong mag-isip ng katalungan nyo para pagbukas pa lang ng ating chat box ay mailagay nyo na yung inyong katanungan sa chat box at makita na uli agad ng ating mga tagapanalita at makaisipan ka agad nila yung kasagutan na nais nyo. So, ayun po. Maraming salamat.
At Dada, yung mga gustong magkaroon ng presentation ni Kaglen at saka ni ay makikita po ninyo yan sa YouTube ng Future Earth. Tignan lang ho nyo yung sa Future Earth. Mag-subscribe kayo. Meron po kaming YouTube channel. At mag-subscribe na rin kayo doon sa aming, i-follow na rin ninyo ang aming Facebook. So, dyan po, nagtatapos ang ating programa. Maraming salamat po sa ating lahat.
Ayan. Thank you po.
Thank you so much.
Follow po our YouTube, yung atin pong YouTube channel.
Dagang salamat.
Salamat. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.
Kulang ang 1 hour sir. Kulang ang 1 hour.
Mukhang kulang na kulang.
Ang dami nating participants, in fairness, nakakatuwa. Nilista ko yung mga daming LGUs, tapos may mga universities, may National High School from Kidapawan City, grabe, national, Ginatilan National High School, San Beda, Manila was here, DENR Caraga, DENR, DILG 12, Guimaras State University, Sorsogon State University, Bulan Campus, Tulay na Lupa National High School, Labo, Camarines Norte, Gingoog City, LGU, Bukidnon State University, Malaybalay, Samar State University, Aklan State Pinukpok Sakar, Tarlac State University, Baguio City, Mines and Geosciences ng Region 10, DepEd Cebu City, SDO Iloilo, DENR PRO Sikihor, Office of Strategy Management, City Government of San Fernando, La Union, LGU Tabina, Pitogo, Quezon, and Batangas, and Negros Oriental State University.